Armoire makes getting dressed easy. With a clothing rental membership from Armoire, you can build the perfect wardrobe with brands that are high quality, unique, and recommended just for you. All you have to do is take a 5-minute style quiz and select items from your dynamic, personalized closet. The styles show up at your door in as little as 2 days, and when you're ready for new clothes, you don't even have to dry clean. You just swap them out for more new-to-you styles. All of our Her Best Life events are coming up for this fall, and I love that I can try new brands that I would have never tried before. And if you know us, you know we love supporting women-owned businesses, and Armoire is that too. So right now, you can actually give Armoire a try and get up to 50% off of your first month. That's up to $125 off, which is awesome. And all you have to do is just visit armoire.style/empire building. That's armoire.style, which is ARMOIRE.style/empire building to get up to 50% off your first month. And you'll never have to worry about what you're going to wear again. So try it today.
Welcome to Empire Building, the podcast where we talk about building big businesses and even bigger lives. I'm your co-host, Sarah Reynolds.
And I'm Kimber Lovett-Benkidi.
And I'm Wendy Papazan. So today we've got a treat for you. We've got a leadership podcast. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling the weight of leadership lately. It's a heavy one for those of us that are leading through one of the tougher real estate kind of climates that we've all been in. And, you know, I constantly get this question asked, and I'm sure that you guys do too, is how do I get better at leadership? How do I become a better leader?
Yeah, leadership right now, I did a post on my social media this week of just how hard it is. I feel like I'm on like a little bit of a roller coaster, right, in terms of leadership and trying to find the wins in leading. And I told my leadership team, I said, we're going to be the brightest, most shiniest leadership diamonds there is, because this pressure right now is tough. Yeah. And so that's diamonds get created because they do well under pressure. And so that's my prayer for myself, but it is hard.
It is hard. I was taking a look at some survey results out of 1,000 Watt that Brian Bolero does, and they do lots of consumer surveys and lots of real estate agent surveys. And one of the biggest changes that he noticed was that real estate agents, for like one of the top now reasons that they are looking to transition brokerages, is that they're seeking better leadership. To see that actually come out in thousands of agent surveys, that leadership was one of the number one things that they are as a deciding factor when they either leave because they don't have it or they choose where they're going to go.
I love that. Well, as we know, everything rises and falls on leadership, and you all listeners are leaders, aspiring leaders. And today we're going to talk about how to be a leader that someone wants to follow, or the 4 A's of leadership. And the 4 A's are 1, autonomy, which I view as self-leadership. No one is going to follow you if you don't have mastery over what you do. Right? And then we've got 2, which is authenticity, which is the foundation of trust for your team. 3 is accountability. So who is the one upholding the standards? That's you as the leader. And then 4 is really appreciation. The 4th A is appreciation, which is showing that you care.
I think as we dive into these, and Kimber's going to sort of take us off here, but as we dive in, you know, it makes me think about like whether you feel like you're a leader or not, it is a key to building a strong empire. I had a conversation with a friend a couple weeks ago about this, and he's in a really good growth spot in terms of business. And I told him I could see myself or where our business was a few years ago. And I did not lean into increasing my leadership lid at that time. And I told him, please listen to me, like anything you can do on learning leadership, because you're going to need it. You're growing at a fast rate, and your business will only grow. Your empire will only grow to the level that your leadership grows. And so whether you feel like you're there or not, this is an episode you want to listen to, you want to take notes and be all in, because it's going to be some powerful stuff in terms of how to build a big empire.
And whatever that big empire means to you, right? Whether that's, you know, you with a couple people? Or are you with hundreds or thousands of people, right? That's what it's defined as. And I know some of the toughest leadership advice that I got when I felt like I was sort of hitting the ceiling of achievement. One of my coaches said, well, your business is a mirror to you. So if you're hitting a ceiling and you're like, man, this team, or like, man, we're not getting the results, often hold the mirror up and it is going to reflect your strengths and probably your growth opportunities.
And I would just add, we're in a time in our world where we're starved for good leaders. The world is really in need of good leadership. And honestly, I think the world is in need of leaders that have some of the traits that a lot of us women really have, which is this idea of care for our people, empathy, authenticity. So, if you are a leader, an aspiring leader, lean into your leadership because the world really needs you.
Desperate for it, for sure.
Yeah.
So it starts with you, right? So we think about autonomy as the first A, and that really is self-leadership, that the journey starts on the inside. And I love this, right? Like, who spends 100% of the time with you? Other than you, like, it's you. So that's what you have to focus on. And a lot of times we think about like we're pouring out to everybody else, but like putting your own oxygen mask on first. And I think this is both a challenge for a lot of leaders, particularly women leaders, because we're giving at home, we're giving at work, we're giving to all the people that need it around us and taking care of ourselves last. And that's the place where it actually all starts.
It does. Last year, I made a pretty big mistake in this area that I feel I'm paying for even to today. I think when things get tight, I was pretty open about this last year on the podcast, but last year I had to do my very first round of layoffs. So money was tight, finances were tight, sales were down, and we were trying our best to navigate it. I was trying my best to navigate it. So I decided to take a break from coaching my development. And it was a 4-month break. The main reason was for financial, but what ended up happening is I was not taking care of myself. I was not having that sounding board. I was not being held accountable myself. And I can actually see the ripple effect of that decision because it does start with so many times our business starts with us making sure that we're pouring into ourselves. And that goes through leadership development, self-development, having that accountability ourselves to someone else. And so just a big lesson that I learned last year on this and how important it was, because when I didn't have it, it showed in my leadership. And so what Kimber is saying is so, so powerful, is that we need to pour into ourselves. And how we do that many times is by leaning into others.
Well, it's almost counterintuitive, right? Like, it's the self-sacrifice, right? Sarah, you're like, I'm laying off these people. Of course I should sacrifice for myself. I want to show as a leader, I want to show that I'm also feeling the impact as well, right? And yet it's actually, you're saying it has the opposite, because then you weren't actually pouring into yourself as the leader that is having to literally, right, make those difficult decisions, lead the rest of the team, and make sure that there was a business on the other side for everybody that was counting on that business to be there for their families.
So true, Kimber. And, if you're feeling burnt out, it's probably because you have a lack of this in your life. I've just experienced this in the past year. I just had a lot of personal stuff going on. My stepmom died a year ago. I had hip surgery. I moved my dad down here. My dad ended up dying. I moved my sister down here. So there's a lot of like pouring into others. And you get to this point where you just feel overwhelmed. You feel like you can't do your job. You have no energy to do your job. And most of you listeners, you've got a lot of energy. You're probably high energy people. And so when that energy is gone and you just feel like maybe you're just scrolling or on social media, there's no clarity, you really need a break. So I just got back from a couple weeks in Colorado where I got to take a vacation with my family. I had a few days with myself. I got to spend time with a friend, Lee, that lives up there. And I've just come back and I'm just a different person. I just feel so much better. And I'm very much aware of the need to now like take control of my self-care. So I gained a lot of weight this year. So I've hired a coach to help me with my eating, all of that self-care stuff that I put aside, which you do when you have a life event. And I think the key is once that life event is over is you just kind of like get back on that self-care wagon and you start pouring back into yourself. Because at the end of the day, when you have self-confidence, when you love yourself, when you have financial stability, when your mental health is good, when your physical health is good, when you're investing in your learning, then you have the capacity to pour into others, which is really, at the end of the day, that's what leadership is.
Yeah. I mean, I got to be a benefit of this morning. So I got a chance to spend one-on-one time with Wendy, and we co-founded an organization, Kimber as well, called Her Best Life. And you guys have heard us talk about that. If you're a new listener, just for you to know, it's called Her Best Life, and we co-founded it. And right now, Wendy's the chairman of that. So she's the leader of that organization. And she took a week off for vacation, and then she spent a day giving thinking time towards her best life. So I got to catch up with her this morning, and it was so exciting and inspiring for me to hear like her thoughts and her dreams and her vision and things that came from that time. And I get to benefit from that, right? Like I'm one of her people in that case that she's leading, and I get to benefit from her taking that time. And so like you get to see how important it is to have that time off, to make sure that we're investing in all of the parts of our life as a leader, because we are humans. I said this like 8 times this week, but I'm going to say it to all of our listeners. For so many times, we want to think that humans are like logical people that have feelings, but really we're feeling people that use logic to then help with decision making. It actually starts with feelings. And so if we're feeling burnt out, all of our logical decision making for our business is actually going to be a reflection of that. And so taking that time for ourselves in all of the areas of our life as a human being is critical to leadership.
Well, and I just want to add one more thing, and we're going to talk about this for each of the A's, but what is your system around this? What's your system for autonomy? What's your system for self-development? I can remember Diana Kokoska. Most of us are riding on her shoulders. She was an incredible leader in the real estate world, broke a lot of barriers as a woman. And she once asked me what my growth plan was when I was sort of a young leader. It just blew my mind because I had never thought about growth or education or like even planning for that. But that's really what we're talking about. So if you don't have a plan for your growth, then you're probably not going to grow.
Yeah. So tactically, right? Like, so for time off, those vacations and that family time for you to get breaks, that should actually be on your calendar for 2025 first, right? Before anything else. And so you have to have that time. And then what was your sort of system for growth in terms of having that, to answer her question, Wendy?
Well, I mean, what she suggested was to think about your year and really put down what you're doing every single month in terms of your growth. So it might be like for me, in February, I go to KW's big real estate event, but then, in March, it might be reading a book on leadership. And I think what can be tough is that at a certain point, some of the things that were working in the past that kind of filled us up growth and education wise, we're still going to them, but we're not getting maybe the same result because we've kind of extracted all the knowledge and information that we need out of them. So this year I've been really intentional about like, what can I do that's maybe something I haven't done in the past in terms of my education or the way I'm learning, or, I'm even outside of the real estate industry is where I'm learning now.
But I think just starting, like if you're hearing this and you're like, I don't have a system, I don't have the growth plan, just giving yourself permission for the white space, like when that time that you took to reflect. I had to recently cancel a trip that I really was looking forward to going on, but I knew that I was like racing and running and I needed to make some big professional and personal decisions. And I can't do that when I'm just like racing through the day on schedules and meetings and reacting and pouring into everybody else. So I literally said, well, that's 3 days. I can literally take that off, say no to say yes to myself. And so it may be that your first step, if this is something that you're like, I don't have a growth plan, I don't know what that is just clear it. Create the space for you to pour into yourself, spend time with yourself, and then reflect, journal, ask those questions, and then build that out. What's the one thing that would help turn that around and start putting you on a path to having accountability around that?
I love that. Well, and it's just kind of ironic that our first A, autonomy, is how you build a great team. It's kind of ironic. Then moving to our second A, which is authenticity. This is one of my core values, and anybody that knows me knows I'm uniquely me. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. And I think sometimes when we younger or newer leaders, we feel like we have to fit ourselves into some kind of persona. We have to be someone different than who we are. And I've certainly been guilty of that. Maybe we need to feel like like we need to put our armor on and be more stoic or more brave or anything like that. But really, authenticity is the foundation of trust. And if your leadership team doesn't have trust, or any organization that you're leading doesn't have trust, then you don't have a teamwork. You don't have team. You've got a group, right? And so one of the things that we want to do as a leader is we want to move our group to become a true team. And the way that you do that is you build trust. And the foundation of true trust is really being authentic.
This is also a key for me in terms of, this is my favorite A. I love all the A's, but this is my favorite for sure. And I'm sitting here thinking, and authenticity also allows for us to not be lonely as a leader. So on Wednesday night, I got a call that my granddaddy wasn't doing well and that his moments were limited on the earth. And we have once a month, every location, every department at Empower Home, it's about 300 of us, get on for a network-wide, full, all-family meeting. And it's probably my most favorite work day of the month because we're all together, we're celebrating the month before, we're giving awards out, it's fun. And I got the call the night before, and I knew that my priority needed to be my granddaddy and going to see him and spending time with him. And so I let my leadership team know, I let them know what was going on and that I wouldn't be available. And then I did a video for my team and no makeup on. I had been crying, my hair in a ponytail. I had a t-shirt on because I was getting ready to head out to go see my granddaddy. And I just did a video letting them know why I wasn't there. And then I talked about my granddaddy and what they could learn from him and his life. And it was 7 minutes. It wasn't long. But what ended up happening is so many of them started reaching out to me after they saw it and how my granddaddy's story resonated with them. And thank you for telling us. And I'm here for you. And whereas I think so many times we think, no one can know I'm going through this. Like, that's what we're thinking in our head as leaders. But really, our people want to know what we're going through. They want to know, and they want to be with us.
They want to be with us.
And so it helps with loneliness as well when we're authentic with our people.
Okay, I'm having a chuckle over here, not because of your grandfather, but I'm remembering that time during COVID. Remember when COVID hit and you did that team training for all of your new agents?
You mean my most authentic training?
Your most authentic training, where right over your left shoulder, your bra
yes.
was just like hanging right over.
Yes.
You remember that?
And it was like the comfortable ugly bra. We all have them. Yes. It was onboarding.
It was all your newbies. Yeah. You're like, hi, I'm Sarah.
Yeah. I'm your fearless leader.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm an armor up girl, right? Like I live behind a wall and it has protected me in a lot of ways. And so this has been one of my growth edges. And I love Brene Brown. And yet I'm like, I don't know, Brene, that works for you. It's not going to work for me. And yet I do feel like, Sarah, like what you're saying, this idea of like, it does combat loneliness. Like that which is deeply personal is also universal. And when we allow others to see us,
yes,
which is like the most basic of what human need is, right? To be seen by others. And so it does allow you to do that. And so that's a place for me that I couldn't quite figure out some of the connectivity blocks that I was having in my team. And I thought it has been a good journey to my own authenticity over the last year or so, realizing that that's actually been one of the blocks. And I just had a really challenging meeting, which I think, Sarah, you did as well. And I learned a lot, like Wendy and the Rumble framework of like, how do you actually pull a team together? And what I realized was I couldn't figure out like, why was this team really struggling? And I realized it was starting with me, right? Back to self-accountability, right? Around, I wasn't saying my truth and therefore wasn't creating space for people to say theirs. And so just that ability to prepare and be thoughtful and do it in a way that resonated for me, I think was a real turning point for some of our leaders.
Well, Kimber, you're such a powerful leader, and your journey over the past 7 years, it's been a lot. And especially this last year, watching you lean into your true self and who you really want and your power has been so powerful. And that's only going to make you more powerful as a leader and as a person. So good for you. I'm proud of you.
It's a journey. It's a journey.
Yeah,
it is. This week I watched with my girls the Simone Biles Netflix.
I heard it was great.
I didn't realize how heavy it was. Parent warning. I wish I would have understood beforehand, but it was a good conversation with my girls. But, her backing out of the 2020 Olympics, actually, if you follow it, and that was very authentic about what she was going through, very public of what she was going through with mental in her mind. If you follow it, it's actually what led to the shining the light on a lot of the abuse that was going on in gymnastics. And it was such a reminder of us when we're authentically us, and whether we're struggling or like when we share those with other people, it gives everyone permission to share their struggle too. And it starts with us, just as Kimber said. And so first day, we want to make sure that we are focusing on our self-development with autonomy, and then really focusing on our growth plan and increasing our leadership lead. Second A, authenticity, showing up as truly who we are. And then to be a leader that others want to follow, you want to have the third A, which is accountability, right? Talented people want to be held accountable. Okay? Your people do not want another friend. That is actually not why they want to be led by you. They want you to lead them. They want to see that their career, their dreams, their goals can be achieved within your organization, within your team, right? And so that takes you having those hard conversations. That takes you leaning in to standards and holding them accountable to those standards. I was listening to a podcast this week about this and about like conversation frameworks about how to hold your team accountable. And they were saying how when you are holding them accountable to the standard, you're not criticizing them. You're helping them know where they need to get to. And so like, do you have your standards? Like if you have an inside sales team, do they know how many dials they should have every hour, right? How many appointments they should book, but putting standards in place to where they know what the goal is, what they need to achieve in their role.
I think the word able is in accountable. You're actually holding them able to the standards. And it's not like you've got the whip out and you're flogging them if they don't do it. You're actually acting as a good leader and you're saying, hey, you know what? This is the standard. I know you can get there. And what do we need to do together in order to make that possible for you?
So good, Wendy.
What I think defining, like part of that accountability on the front end for leadership is defining what success looks like for someone as the leader so that they know this is how you're going to win in the first 30 days. If somebody's not performing in the role, right? We're in a time of great transition in the industry. What does success look like? Because then everyone's clear on the standard. And so that allows, I think, accountability to flow much more naturally. And a lot of times we think people aren't being accountable, but as the leader, we have to ask, have we been clear? Are we holding ourselves accountable? Were we clear on the expectation? Did we document it? Do they know what we're expecting of them, what the standard is, so that the accountability becomes a much more natural byproduct of a standard?
And we're all systems and models based. So, what is your system for accountability? We have a daily huddle every day where people have to take a tiny bit of focus and figure out what their most important thing of the day is. That's a system.
Yep.
That's a system for accountability. At the end of our 15-minute huddle, I know what everybody's priority for the day is. And then we have weekly accountability meetings. And, sometimes those meetings look like 5 minutes where you're talking to your people and they're basically saying, yeah, I got everything I said I would get done last week. And here's what I'm going to do this week. And that's good enough. And sometimes those meetings are not like that. Sometimes it's like, hey, you know what? I noticed you're not hitting your goals week after week after week. Like, tell me what's going on. How am I failing you as a leader? How can I help you?
Yes, I love that, Wendy. And what I love about, in particular, the huddles is any form of public accountability is very powerful. I tell our team often, we rise and we fall as a team. So we rise and we fall as a team. So why shouldn't what we need to do each day be accountable to all, right? If we're rising and we're falling together, then everyone needs to understand what the standards are and then who's meeting them and who's not. And not in a negative, like shame on you, let's shame you all publicly, but any form of public accountability. It makes your team feel like I'm not the only one doing it. I'm not the only one that has a priority today, right? And then I get to report the exciting news of me actually hitting it tomorrow. And so it gives this sense, a higher sense of accountability. So I love those systems, Wendy.
Your standards are really the worst person on your team. That's your standard.
Yep.
And how do you gamify it, right? Accountability, like making it fun. I think so. That's what you're talking about too. When it's public, it doesn't have to be like public shaming, right? But there's a scoreboard. And so you have to celebrate the person who's at the top of the scoreboard. And it creates that competitive piece. It also helps the mindset of like, is something achievable? And sometimes I think people are like, well, I don't know one can do that. And that can also help disrupt that thinking of like, no, actually, here it is. Here's how we're going to do it. And then you get to celebrate, which takes us to our fourth one, which is appreciation, right? So we're thinking about, we've taken ourselves all the way through. We looked at autonomy, self-leadership, and then authenticity and accountability. And number 4, which I think is one that we all really love and enjoy and need in our souls, is appreciation. How do we make sure that we're acknowledging and seeing all the beautiful things that people are doing? I think the 5 love languages, right, is a great way to think about this. A lot of times as leaders, we give appreciation the way we like to receive it, not necessarily how somebody in your life, personally or professionally, would want to receive that recognition, appreciation. So it's a fun way to also get to know people on your team. How do they like to be celebrated? You've got some people who love public recognition. Other people on your team might cringe at the idea of public recognition. And so, but having a handwritten note or a small little gift that's left for them is a really nice way to acknowledge and to see and to recognize and appreciate them. So I think back to everything we've said, what's your system as well for appreciation? How are you building it in? Some leaders are like fast and moving, and they're not even thinking about how they actually stop, celebrate, recognize when little or large achievements happen in their business and the team.
A simple system that I use for this, Kimber, is at the end of every day, typically I'm in my bathtub, but at the end of every day, I look at my calendar from that day and anyone that I spent time with. Because for me, appreciation, anytime someone gives you their time, they're actually giving you their most valuable resource. If they sat down and they had a one-on-one with you, if they were in a meeting with you, who were you with that day? In a simple text message that night saying, hey, I just appreciate you spending time with me today. And as the leader, telling them, like, I appreciate your time. So many times our people think that they have to tell us, like, oh, I got time with Kimber. I got time with Wendy. Well, I think I got time with my team member, like, and just thanking them for their time and then anything that I noticed in that time. And so, like, it's literally, I look at my calendar, who was I with? And making sure that they know I appreciate their time. And then also I appreciate anything they said or I noticed during that time.
I love that. And if you haven't done the 5 love languages with your team, you definitely should, so that you understand what their love languages are.
Yes.
And then I would take it a step further. So you can send out a simple survey to everybody in your world, and you can ask them questions about what they like. So you might ask them, what's their favorite flower, or maybe their favorite restaurant, or their favorite color, or all of the above. And, just have that dump into a spreadsheet. Because actually, I think sometimes we're like, oh, you have to figure all that stuff out. And you really don't. Actually, when somebody sends you a little survey or something like that, it's nice. You appreciate it.
Yes.
And so then you have all of that information. And it's funny because the other day, Jay, my husband, sent me a message and he said, what is your favorite coffee, iced and hot? Which, like, he should know that. But he really doesn't. He really doesn't. And so he's like, just once and for all, I'm going to like write it down. Finally. And I think he wrote I think it was like the 20% or whatever that he wrote. His little newsletter had something about it. But yeah, so it's just creating a little system around it. And then if you're that person who you really struggle with this, because I think a lot of us that are leaders, we're just moving forward all the time. We're never looking back, because that is appreciation. It's really looking backwards and thanking someone for something. And we're always just so forward minded. And, if you've got an assistant who can help you with some of these things, they can set up the survey. They can say, hey, every month now I sit down with my assistant and we look at all the birthdays, we look at all the anniversaries, just all of the things that are happening that month. And then she's kind of in charge of making that happen. And it makes you look real good. It makes you look real good.
Yes.
And feel good.
Yes, for sure. Well, appreciation, they say, is the number one most human need. Like, every human needs appreciation. 2 really quick other systems that have helped me, especially for those listeners that are leading a larger group of people. I've had to navigate that because when we were smaller, it felt easier for me to show appreciation. We've added to every executive leadership team agenda, a section called team member headlines. And that's where all of the leaders can share the good and also the struggles our team members are having. And that's honestly for me. Like why that's on there is for me to hear. Like what good's going on in our people's lives, what struggles are they having with. And then we have a Slack channel that's closed to all of our leaders that's just called our love channel, where everyone dumps in like this person needs extra appreciation or they're struggling with this. So it's not just appreciation, but it's a way for you to navigate how to grow and at the same time show appreciation to your people. So I wanted to mention that tactical thing.
I love it. And I think as all things do, they tie together. And I think when you think about appreciation, even back to number one in autonomy and self-leadership, like one of the places that when you're in a season like this or any season, the gratitude practice. And I think appreciation can come out of a gratitude practice. So Sarah, what you're doing right often in the bath in the evening is really gratitude, right? You're looking at your schedule and you're acknowledging, but you're also like reflecting on what did you appreciate from the day? What were you grateful for? And when you're thinking about that self-leadership and the mindset and how do you do that? How do you lead your people in difficult times? Like just the journal of that is really powerful. Like the amount of research that really indicates like even just in the health of our brains, right? On the focus on gratitude, which layers right back into appreciation. So I've started even just at the top of my 411s, recognizing something that I appreciate or I'm grateful for about that person and leading with that, like just pouring into them, especially I think right now when things are really hard for a lot of people and just helping them see the greatness you see in them.
Well, guys, today, as always, I took tons of notes and, we're all striving to be the kind of leader that someone wants to follow. And so this simple, easy framework of the 4 A's of leadership can be a great jumping off point. We've got autonomy, which is you got to lead yourself first. Then we've got authenticity, which is the foundation of trust, is how you turn a group into a team. And then you've got accountability, which is you as the leader need to uphold the standards. And I said it before and I'll say it again. Standard is the worst person on your team. That is your standard. And then, of course, we've got appreciation, which is how we show our people how we care about them. And I just want to take a minute and shout out to all of our listeners out there and say I really appreciate all of you. I know there are a million podcasts to listen to, and we really appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you taking the time to write us a review, give us a 5-star rating, and hopefully share this with a friend. If this resonated with you, we'd love for you to share this with someone that you know, love, and trust. So thank you guys so much. Continue to go out there and build your big businesses and even bigger lives.
Bye.
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 This podcast is for general informational purposes only. The views, thoughts, and opinions of the guest represent those of the guest and not KWRI and its affiliates, and should not be construed as financial, economic, legal, tax, or other advice. This podcast is provided without any warranty or guarantee of its accuracy, completeness, timeliness, or results from using the information.